There's a moment in everyone's life when things stop making sense. You lose something, someone hurts you, the plan you trusted falls apart. And you ask, why would God let this happen? But what if the problem isn't the pain itself? What if the real issue is the way we see it? Most people are trained to see success, failure, gain, and loss, but very few are trained to see God. Yet the greatest transformation begins the day you start asking, what if He's here too, even in this? When you train your mind to see God in everything, you stop labeling life as good or bad. You start seeing it as guided. Every delay becomes protection. Every struggle becomes preparation. And every unanswered prayer becomes redirection. We've been taught to trust God when life feels easy. But growth begins when you trust Him when it doesn't. Because faith isn't a feeling, it's a focus. It's choosing to believe that even in the silence, you are being shaped. When you look at a sunset, you see color. But when you see God in that same sunset, you feel gratitude. When you meet a difficult person, you see conflict. But when you see God in that person, you learn compassion. When life breaks you, you see pain. But when you see God in the breaking, you find purpose. That's the difference. Life doesn't change, your vision does. And when your vision changes, everything else follows. The truth is, God is not hidden. He's everywhere, in the laughter of a child, in the courage of a stranger, in the silence between your thoughts. But you'll only find Him where you choose to look. So train your mind, not just to think, but to see. To see meaning where others see mess, to see purpose where others see pain. To see God, not just in miracles, but in the ordinary. Because once you do, life will never look the same again. Perspective shapes everything. Your choices, your emotions, your relationships, your peace. Two people can go through the same storm, face the same loss, walk through the same valley, yet one breaks while the other builds. The difference isn't in what happened, but in how they see what happened. When your mind is trained to look for meaning, you start to see purpose even in the darkest places. When your heart learns to trust that life isn't random, you stop fighting every situation and start asking, what is this moment trying to teach me? That single question changes everything. Most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances instead of reflecting on them. They see obstacles as punishment instead of preparation. But purpose often hides behind pain. Growth often disguises itself as loss. Perspective is what reveals the hidden order beneath the apparent chaos. The person who can step back and look at their life from a higher lens, not just through their emotions, but through awareness, becomes unstoppable. Because when you see your challenges as teachers, you no longer run from them. You grow through them. Think about it. A seed buried in the soil could easily believe it's being buried to die, but from another perspective, it's being planted to rise. The same pressure that breaks one person can awaken another. The difference is how you choose to see it. Perspective is the invisible lens through which you interpret reality, and if that lens is cloudy with fear, regret, or bitterness, even blessings will look like burdens. But when that lens is clear, when you train yourself to see through the eyes of purpose, even burdens start looking like blessings in disguise. When you change your perspective, you don't just change how you feel. You change what's possible. You begin to act differently because you think differently. You start showing up with calmness instead of panic, patience instead of frustration, gratitude instead of complaint. The same job that felt meaningless becomes an opportunity to serve. The same relationship that felt heavy becomes a chance to practice empathy. The same failure that once defined you becomes the foundation of your wisdom. That's the power of perspective. It doesn't change the facts, but it transforms your experience of them. Life doesn't promise clarity. It promises contrast, light and dark, joy and sorrow, certainty and confusion. Perspective is what helps you navigate the contrast without losing your center. It's the reminder that storms are temporary, but what they build inside you can last a lifetime. The human mind loves control, but life loves mystery. When you stop resisting the unknown and start trusting that every experience carries a lesson, you move from fear to flow. You stop seeing life as happening to you and start seeing it as happening for you. Every disappointment carries direction. Every delay carries divine timing. Every ending carries a beginning you can't yet see. Perspective is the bridge between confusion and clarity, between reaction and response. It gives you power over the one thing you can always control, your interpretation. When you decide to see purpose in your pain stops controlling you. When you decide to see potential in your problems become pathways. That's when you realize that perspective is not about ignoring reality. It's about revealing the truth behind it. So whenever you find yourself in darkness, don't rush to escape it. Look around. Ask what it's showing you. Maybe it's teaching patience, humility, empathy, or strength. Maybe it's breaking something that needed to break so something stronger could rise. Every situation, no matter how hard, carries wisdom if you choose to see it. Perspective shapes purpose because it transforms chaos into clarity, pain into progress, and ordinary life into a divine conversation between you and something far greater than yourself. Gratitude is not a reaction to getting what you want. It is a recognition that you already have what you need. It shifts the focus from what's missing to what's present, from complaint to contentment, from fear to faith. When you begin to look at your life through the lens of gratitude, something powerful happens inside your mind. You stop chasing happiness as if it's somewhere out there, and you start discovering it right where you stand. Gratitude is not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging the beauty that still exists, even in the middle of imperfection. It opens the mind because it changes what you choose to notice, and what you notice shapes how you live. Most people live in a constant state of lack. They focus on what they don't have, what they haven't achieved, who hasn't supported them, and what hasn't gone right. The mind becomes a loop of scarcity, comparing and competing, always wanting more and appreciating less. But when you train your mind to look for what's right instead of what's wrong, the world softens. Suddenly, the same morning light feels warmer, the same challenges feel smaller, and the same life feels more complete. Gratitude rewires your brain to find value in moments you once overlooked. It turns the ordinary into sacred ground. A grateful mind sees possibility, where a fearful mind sees limitation. It's not that the circumstances change, it's that perception evolves. When you start appreciating what you already have, you stop depending on external validation to feel fulfilled. You realize that joy doesn't come from accumulation, but from awareness. Gratitude expands awareness. It stretches your capacity to see beyond frustration and into meaning. The simple act of pausing to say thank you, even for something small, opens mental doors that were once locked by worry or resentment. Gratitude also disarms the ego. The ego thrives on comparison, on needing to be more, have more, and prove more. Gratitude dissolves that illusion by reminding you that enough is already here. It humbles you without diminishing you. It allows you to celebrate others without feeling threatened. It transforms competition into connection. When you are grateful, you begin to see people not as rivals but as reflections, each carrying lessons and blessings that contribute to your growth. Gratitude creates emotional intelligence because it teaches you to respond instead of react, to appreciate instead of demand. There is a quiet strength in being thankful even when things are uncertain. Gratitude doesn't deny difficulty, it defines how you face it. It whispers, "There's still good here," when the world seems against you. It reminds you that life is not measured by what you have, but by how fully you see it. The moment you start counting blessings, you stop counting problems. And it's not because the problems disappear, but because your focus becomes too full of appreciation to make room for despair. Science may call it neuroplasticity, spirituality calls it faith, but both point to the same truth. Gratitude changes the way the brain processes experience. It lights up areas connected to joy, empathy, and creativity. It opens the mind to solutions rather than limitations. A grateful person doesn't live a problem-free life, they simply live a purpose-filled one. They don't wait for everything to be perfect to feel peace. They find peace in progress. Gratitude teaches you that happiness isn't something to pursue, it's something to practice. When you wake up and choose to notice the breath you take, the food you eat, the sky above, the people you love, and even the challenges that shape you, you begin to participate in life instead of just passing through it. Gratitude is not a list, it's a lifestyle. It changes how you see time, people, and yourself. It opens your mind to receive more because it shows that you are already surrounded by abundance. The more grateful you become, the more awake you feel, and the more awake you are, the more deeply you live. Surrender is often misunderstood. People think it means giving up, admitting defeat, or losing control. But true surrender is none of those things. It is the quiet, courageous act of letting go of what you cannot change so you can finally focus on what you can. It's trusting that there is a rhythm to life, a wisdom beyond your understanding, and a force that knows better than your plans ever could. Surrender is strength because it takes power to stop fighting what is and start flowing with what could be. It requires humility to accept that you are not in control of everything, but you are responsible for how you respond to everything. When you resist life, you create tension inside yourself. You worry, overthink, and exhaust your spirit trying to push against what's already happening. But when you surrender, you release that tension. You free yourself from the illusion that everything depends on you. It's not weakness to stop forcing outcomes, it's wisdom. Because control often comes from fear that things won't turn out the way you want. But surrender comes from faith. Faith that even if things unfold differently, they will still lead you where you're meant to be. The strongest people are not those who hold on the tightest, but those who know when to release and trust the process. Surrender is not the end of effort, it's the beginning of alignment. It doesn't mean you stop working hard, it means you stop working against yourself. You still take action, but now from a place of peace, not panic. You move forward with calm conviction instead of desperate control. There's a deep power in saying, "I've done my best, now I trust what happens next." That sentence doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful because it shifts your energy from anxiety to acceptance. And acceptance is where clarity lies. Life has a strange way of teaching you surrender. Sometimes it takes losing what you thought you needed to discover what truly matters. Sometimes it takes silence to remind you that peace doesn't come from answers, but from trust. The moments that break your plans are often the ones that build your character. Surrender allows you to see those moments not as punishment, but as preparation. It's the realization that every closed door is protecting you from something not meant for you, and every delay is aligning you with something greater than you imagined. When you surrender, you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That question transforms pain into purpose. It softens the resistance that keeps you stuck. You begin to see that everything happening to you is also happening for you, for your growth, your understanding, your evolution. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to stay open to the lesson. The strength and surrender lies in your ability to stay calm in uncertainty, to trust the timing of your journey, and to believe that not knowing doesn't mean not moving forward. The truth is, control is an illusion. The more you try to grasp it, the more it slips through your hands. But surrender doesn't mean losing control of your life. It means giving control back to the wisdom that guides life itself. It's choosing faith over fear, flow over force, peace over perfection. It's understanding that the river doesn't fight to reach the ocean. It simply follows the current that was always meant to carry it there. When you let go of resistance, you don't fall, you rise. Because surrender is not about giving up your power, it's about giving up your struggle so your true power can finally surface. In a world that glorifies business, stillness feels unnatural. We measure our worth by how much we do, how fast we move, and how constantly we stay connected. But the irony is that the more noise we allow in, the less we hear ourselves. The power of stillness lies in its quiet rebellion against a restless world. It's not the absence of movement. It's the presence of awareness. It's the moment you stop chasing life long enough to actually feel it. Stillness doesn't demand that you run away from the world. It invites you to return to yourself. Most people think productivity comes from constant action, but true clarity comes from stillness. The mind, when overworked and overstimulated, becomes cloudy and reactive. Thoughts race, emotions spiral, and decisions are made out of fear rather than wisdom. Stillness is what resets that internal noise. It allows you to see without distortion, to hear the voice beneath the chaos. The voice of intuition, truth, and calm strength. When you pause, you don't lose time, you reclaim it. You learn that not every battle deserves your reaction, not every question needs an answer, and not every noise deserves your attention. In stillness, the mind finds its natural rhythm again. The body relaxes, the breath deepens, and the soul starts speaking in whispers. You begin to realize how much of your energy was wasted on trying to control what was never yours to control. Stillness doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful because it anchors you. It's what allows you to respond rather than react. The world might tell you that silence is weakness, but in truth, silence is strategy. The person who can sit still with discomfort, uncertainty, or pain without rushing to fix it gains an inner mastery that no external success can replace. The most profound insights rarely come in the middle of noise. They come in quiet moments, early in the morning before the world wakes, in the pause between breaths, in the calm after chaos. It's in those spaces that creativity is born and wisdom returns. When you train your mind to embrace stillness, you create a gap between thought and action, and in that gap lies freedom. You no longer become a prisoner of every impulse or emotion. You begin to choose your direction with purpose instead of being pulled by distraction. Stillness also reveals truth. It shows you the difference between what you think you want and what your soul actually needs. When you slow down, your priorities rearrange themselves. You start realizing that peace is more valuable than praise. Presence is more fulfilling than progress, and understanding is deeper than achievement. You stop chasing validation because you start hearing your own voice clearly again. That clarity is power. The kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't compete, doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. The power of stillness is not just spiritual, it's deeply practical. In moments of stillness, the brain organizes information, connects ideas, and restores balance. Leaders make wiser choices. Artists create with more depth. Relationships heal through listening instead of arguing. Stillness gives perspective. It allows you to zoom out from the small details and see the bigger picture. It's what helps you realize that rushing rarely gets you there faster. It just gets you there emptier. Every moment you spend in stillness strengthens your connection to something larger than yourself. It reminds you that beneath the constant movement of life, there's a steady rhythm that never stops. A calm center that's always available no matter what's happening outside. When you access that stillness, you stop being controlled by the world and start moving in harmony with it. In stillness, you don't escape life, you finally meet it. Connection begins where control ends. Most people believe that to connect deeply with others, they need to shape, guide, or influence how others think and act. But genuine connection doesn't come from control, it comes from presence. It's not about managing people, it's about meeting them, fully without agenda. When you stop trying to change people and start trying to understand them, something shifts. You begin to see them not as projects to fix, but as mirrors reflecting parts of yourself. Control builds walls, connection builds bridges. And those bridges can only stand when both sides feel seen, respected, and free. Control is born out of fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood. But fear disconnects. It creates tension in every conversation, pressure in every relationship, and expectation in every exchange. When you let go of that control, you create space for authenticity. You allow people to show up as they are, not as who you want them to be. That space is where real love, respect, and trust begin. Connection doesn't mean agreement, it means alignment. It means valuing another human's experience and not to listen without needing to win. The truth is, control feels safe, but it isolates. Connection feels vulnerable, but it liberates. It's easy to hold power over someone, it's harder to hold space for them. But the latter is where meaning lies. The power of human connection comes from mutual respect. The willingness to say, I may not understand everything you're feeling, but I'm here with you anyway. When you release control, you invite curiosity. You begin to see that everyone carries a story that explains their behavior. And when you start listening to that story, judgment turns into compassion. Relationships thrive when control is replaced by communication. When you stop trying to win arguments and start trying to understand perspectives, you move from resistance to resonance. You realize that empathy isn't agreement, it's awareness. The ability to feel with someone instead of against them. When you connect this way, even conflict transforms. It becomes a pathway to deeper understanding rather than a wall of misunderstanding. The moment you stop controlling, you start relating. And that's when conversations become healing instead of hurtful. Connection beyond control also means trusting that people are on their own journey. You can support, guide, and love them, but you can't live for them. You can't force timing, growth, or awareness. Every person awakens at their own pace, and surrendering to that truth keeps your heart free. Trying to control how someone grows only exhausts you. Trusting the process of their growth empowers you. Connection flourishes in freedom. When people feel safe to be themselves around you, they open up. They become honest. They let you see their truth without fear of rejection. That's the kind of connection that lasts, the kind that doesn't depend on control but on trust. In moments of misunderstanding, control says, you need to see it my way. Connection says, help me see it your way. That shift transforms relationships between partners, friends, families, even teams. It removes the pressure to be right and replaces it with the intention to be real. Control seeks dominance, connection seeks understanding. And understanding is what heals the distance between people. To connect beyond control is to lead with humility. It's choosing to listen more than you speak, to ask more than you assume, and to accept more than you expect. It's realizing that connection doesn't come from proving your strength, but from showing your humanity. When you stop trying to control how people see you, you become easier to love. When you stop controlling how others act, you become easier to trust. Connection isn't about power, it's about presence. It's the courage to let go of your grip and hold space instead, to stop managing others and start meeting them where they are, to love without conditions, and to trust that real connection never needs control. Trust is the foundation on which transformation is built. Without it, growth feels unsafe, uncertain, and impossible to sustain. Trust is not blind belief. It's courageous surrender to the process of becoming. It is choosing to move forward even when you can't see the full path. Transformation begins the moment you stop needing proof and start choosing faith. Because every great change in life requires a leap, a step into the unknown, and that leap is only possible when trust outweighs fear. Trust is what allows you to keep walking when the results haven't yet appeared, to stay grounded when everything around you feels uncertain, and to believe that the detours are part of the design. The journey of growth is rarely comfortable. It stretches you, tests you, and often asks you to let go of what's familiar. Most people resist transformation not because they fear change, but because they don't trust themselves to handle it. Trust transforms resistance into resilience. When you trust life, you stop fighting the current. You stop demanding certainty and start building confidence in your ability to adapt. That is where real transformation begins, not in control, but in trust. Trust is not passive, it's active faith. It's the discipline of believing that progress is being made, even when it's invisible. Like a seed buried in soil, the most important growth happens in darkness. You may not see it, but it's happening. The same is true for your life. When you trust the timing of your journey, you stop forcing results and start aligning with them. Trust turns waiting into preparation. It shifts your mindset from, why isn't it happening yet, to what is this moment preparing me for? That shift changes everything because it replaces anxiety with awareness. Transformation through trust also means trusting yourself. Too often, people outsource their power, seeking validation, permission, or assurance from others before making a move. But transformation demands inner confidence. It's the quiet decision to believe in your own strength even when no one else does. It's saying, I may not have it all figured out, but I trust myself to figure it out as I go. That kind of trust builds courage, and courage is the birthplace of growth. Every breakthrough begins with one small act of self-trust. When you begin to trust yourself, you start trusting the process. You start recognizing that not every failure is final, not every delay is denial, and not every struggle is punishment. Trust reframes pain as preparation. It helps you see that what feels like falling apart is often life rearranging things to fit your purpose. You stop clinging to outcomes and start paying attention to lessons. That's what transformation really is, the unfolding of wisdom through experience guided by trust. Trust also changes how you relate to others. When you operate from trust instead of fear, relationships become spaces of freedom rather than control. You allow others to grow, to change, to make mistakes just as you do. You no longer demand perfection, you look for authenticity. That creates a deeper connection, one rooted in faith rather than expectation. And through that connection, both people transform. In moments of uncertainty, trust acts as an anchor. It keeps you centered when life feels unstable. It whispers that even though you don't know how things will work out, you're still moving in the right direction. Every time you choose trust over doubt, you strengthen your inner foundation. Transformation is never about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you've always been beneath the fear. And trust is what makes that return possible. It softens resistance, expands courage, and turns uncertainty into opportunity. It allows life to unfold not according to your schedule, but according to its wisdom. Transformation through trust is the art of believing before you see, moving before you're ready, and allowing the unknown to become your greatest teacher.